Welcome to the Chasing Thoughts podcast. Listen in as Mindy, Keith, and their guests take a deep dive into their own minds and souls to investigate the beauty of imperfection, challenge their beliefs, and embrace the richness of living a truly authentic life. Welcome to Chasing Thoughts.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 12 of Chasing Thoughts. I should say season 2, episode 12. This isn't our 12th episode. Make it sound like we're real newbies. How you doing, Keith?
I am good. I am very good. How about you?
I'm doing really well, too. I feel like spring has sprung. And I saw
Yes.
this funny post that said something like, I never believe in seasonal depression until mid-March when all of a sudden I have a burst of energy. And that's how I have felt the last couple of days. I have more energy. I'm cleaning the house. It's lighter later. And for me, I love the seasons and I'm a real hibernator in the winter. And it's when I sow all my seeds and do all my interpersonal work. And so now is sort of the time when, okay, it's time for me to go out into the world and like unveil myself and live bigger for this season. And that's exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm starting to get really excited. I was able to like sit outside for like an hour yesterday and just like me and my dog hanging out and just soaking up all the sun. And I'm getting really excited for the first mushroom walk of the season. So yeah, it's gonna be pretty good. I got my mushrooms all ready to go.
Nice.
So yeah.
Nice.
Yep.
Yeah, I have been slowly buying seeds because I love gardening. And I love
Yep.
gardening from seed because it's really magical to watch something come from a seed. And I loaded up a cart with seeds and it was a couple $100. And I'm like, oh, my husband's never going to go for this. So I've just been buying like $20 at a time, kind of easing it into our budget.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, actually, we have a guy coming over this week, I think, to put in a drainage river or something. I don't know, some type of like stone thing that the water, because like the water just like runs through our backyard and creates this like little ravine.
Yeah.
And it's such a pain in the butt. And so yeah, we're gonna put that in, and then we're gonna get make some planter boxes and stuff. And yeah, so we're getting ready to do the same. It's gonna be pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. So have you been nerding out on anything or loving anybody on social media? What's been grabbing your attention this last week?
So yeah, so first off, I am so excited that the Done That podcast just released their first episode. I'm so excited for Angela. Um, I can't wait to listen to it because I just her take on grief. I really think she's gonna help a lot of people, which would be awesome. But I've been watching a guy, and I was trying to find his name. I told myself 2 days ago, remember his name for this, and of course I didn't listen to myself, so I forgot it. But he lists himself as a motivational speaker, but he does like coaching stuff, and I guess he got big years ago and then said something that basically got him canceled.
Hmm.
And he's rebuilt from there. And we were, as I'm going through editing the episode 10 that we did, we were talking about how with more information, we can say, look, you know what, I said this, I wasn't right, or I've changed my mind, whatever it is. And it seems like that's exactly what happened to him. And now he's come out, but in this whole new way. But what I love about him is his hair is completely a mess. He has holes in his shirts. He'll wear like purple and yellow like track pants with like a polka dot button down shirt. And I think he does it on purpose. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just like he can't be judged, because he knows who he is. And he does this thing with people where he gets like really close to him. He's like, what do you need somebody to say to you right now? And people are so defensive, and they're like, I'm good, I'm good. And he's like, what do you need someone to say to you right now? When they finally say it, he'll start talking to him about that, and everybody just breaks down, just from being able to hear that. And that connection is something I definitely want to have when I'm working with somebody.
Yeah. My husband and I have gotten really good at that. And at first, it sounded really silly because it seems weird to tell somebody exactly what you want them to say. But once you get in the habit of it and you get to hear the things that you need to hear, like you said, it's really powerful. So,
Yeah.
my husband, for example, knows all the things that I need to hear when I'm having a shit day at work and I feel like a failure. So I can go downstairs and be like, baby, just tell me all the things. I need to hear all the things. Right.
Yeah,
And he
yeah,
knows all the things that I need to hear. And it's such a cool way to love somebody exactly the way they want to be loved. Yeah, that's cool.
that is cool. That is really cool. I've never thought about doing something like that, but because we all have those times, even Sandy texted me the other day and she's like, I got 30% today because she was up at like 3 in the morning, just could not go back to sleep, and then working all this overtime now that the legislative session is in, she's like, I'm exhausted, I'm cranky, so I'm like, I got you. But I never thought about that, like having those things that we need to hear, like on standby. I don't
Yeah.
even know if I would know what she needs to hear.
Yeah.
That's
And
pretty
that's
cool.
an interesting conversation to have with the people close to you too, because you learn more about them.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's again another great point because I think over time it becomes easy to, I don't want to say take for granted, but I guess in a way it is kind of a taking for granted, like where you don't even think, not knowing what she would need to hear to feel better,
Mhm.
to be able to have that conversation. Like you said, you get to know more about them in a deeper way. I mean, because the more we know, the more it's like an emotional intimacy that is lacking in so many relationships, and so many times in my own relationship, so
Absolutely. And I think it's because of what you just said, we have a tendency to think, oh, I already know everything about you. I've been with you for
yeah.
20 years, right? When the truth is, I'm not the same person I was last week. I'm certainly not the same person I was a year ago. And so if we give the people around us that gift where we wake up and we look at our spouse and we go, who are you today? You know,
Yeah,
what a great place to start with the investigation and just open up the relationship.
man, what a perception too to have, waking up every day with the idea of finding out who your spouse is that day, because there's so many times that it's Sandy,
Yep.
so that's just who she is, and then it becomes like white noise in the background. I don't need to know anything. I already know everything. And since our minds naturally go negative, it makes it very easy to start nitpicking all these little things, and I think that perception, that mindset keeps you in a state of like wonder about the other person, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I like that a
Yeah.
lot, man.
Yeah. I've really been loving this woman on Instagram. Her name is Lucy Lamp. Lamp, I think is how you pronounce her last name. It's Lampe. And she is a singer, a songwriter, a dancer, a coach, and she does a lot of like women embodiment, women empowerment. But I like it because I feel like the niche that she's in often doesn't have a lot of authenticity, like we
Mm,
talk about all the time. And she is really bringing it to the table. And she had a whole business based on her and her husband and their 4 kids. And then they got divorced. And like she showed that uncoupling and she showed her grief and she showed her restarting her life. And it was just this really beautiful witnessing of another human on the same journey. And I just admired so much how she didn't shy away from that. She didn't pretend it wasn't happening in this, huge spotlight that is social media.
yeah.
And so that's who I've really been enjoying on social media lately.
there needs to be more of that instead of
Mhm.
the like playing the character.
Yep.
Oh, just with all the stuff that's going on with like Jay Shetty and stuff, like that's the danger of I think being a character instead of being yourself,
Yep.
because we all do dumb things, at times. And when that happens and you're playing this perfect character, it shatters everything, I mean, your whole reputation is just destroyed.
Yeah. 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 That's a good reason not to chase perfection, like we were
Yeah.
talking about before the show, right? Because if you show up perfect, you don't have any wiggle room to make mistakes, and that's impossible.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. All right, listeners. So Keith and I usually do a guest and then we do a session where we talk about the guest and what we learned. But last week we didn't have a guest. So we're kind of going to do something new this week. It was Keith's idea. And Keith said, why don't you coach me and we can model for people what a coaching relationship is like and what a coaching session is like. So that's what we're going to do today. It's going to be fun. I'm a little nervous because I've never done it on camera. I mean, I do it on Zoom all the time, but we're not recording it, right? I've never coached for an audience except for when I was in school, which was like back in 2009.
Yeah, yeah.
And I had an audience in a group, right? So I'm excited about this. Are you ready? Do you have any questions before we get started?
No, I think I wanted to make one point is that me and you know each other fairly well at this point, how we operate stuff. So if there's ever like a point where I don't even know how to say it. I'm so nervous. Like I'm just kind of realizing this now because this is going to take a level of vulnerability. So my mind is like like shutting off, and I can see myself going in that fight or flight where words are just hard to come by.
Mhm.
Pretty interesting. But yeah, so if there's ever a point where it's important to explain that in a new coaching relationship, you would have to get more information,
Mhm.
like so we can stop it and explain all the little intricacies of it. Because when I was thinking about this, it wasn't just so I can get a free coaching session, um, but it was so that people can understand what a coaching session should look like to
Mhm.
us, what an ethical coaching session and coaching relationship should be built, how it should be built, and sort of the red flags that we're looking for, within that kind of new relationship that's being developed. Somebody that thinks that they know the answers immediately without any detail and all that type of stuff, and we can just highlight all of that stuff for people.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I would say let's open the door on both sides so that if I say something that makes you feel like you shrink or that you don't
Mhm.
understand, right? That's good feedback for me. And I think it's important to note that in the beginning of a relationship, there is a lot of holes. And the longer you stay with a coach, or if you use that coach on and off through years, then you get to build the beauty of that deeper relationship where you know each other. And I think it's
Yes.
more powerful, right? The longer you build that relationship. So normally I have a first time session with someone where we're on Zoom, we just talk about what the coaching relationship could be like, prices, blah, blah, blah. Then they would buy a package or one off, whatever they want to do. And then this would be our first session. And so if I notice nervousness, which is often present for me or them, sometimes I'll start a session by just saying like, okay, let's just be here. Like we've been out running errands, we've been out doing stuff. Like, let's just take a deep breath, come all the way into our bodies. Okay, tell me what's going on for you today. Why did you seek out coaching? Why are you here?
um wow, this is I love watching my brain work. And even though this was like an idea so that people can see, and I had, an obstacle come up, but the emotion that I'm feeling right now is unexpected, which is pretty cool. So I've been thinking a lot lately about coaching itself. And just like we were kind of talking about, like everything that's going on with the Jay Shetty situation, in national news, there was that lady who was sort of a family type coach who just is going to prison for child abuse, for her kids. And I see people like that, sort of the very unethical coaches, that they have this massive platform. Um, and then I see other successful coaches that I believe are ethical coaches, and they have their massive platform, and I'm looking at all of their credentials. And then I'm looking at myself and I'm thinking, I don't have those credentials, so I am not going to be taken seriously. Um, and then that kind of starts a domino effect, because I know when I start thinking that negative, like pushing my focus on that negative thing, my brain is going to start showing me more negatives. So this past week, I was ready to close up shop and just say, you know what, this is not going to work for me. It got really, really bad. Um, and I want to point out too that everybody, and I think in every profession goes through this, and I never want to kind of promote myself as a coach that doesn't deal with the ups and downs in life. I just so happen to be in a down right now, and this one is kicking my ass. Where I want to work, but I don't want to work. I want to move. I'm in this place like of being in between everything. And it's this belief system that I have that I'm just not good enough no matter what, even though the evidence is contrary to that. I have friends reaching out, and I'm, asking me questions about stuff that's going on in their lives. And I'm like, I cannot wait to meet with you, because, oh, we're going to blow this up. It's going to be so cool. But yeah, I don't believe in myself at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah. So I'm just going to repeat back what you said just to make sure that I understand it and that we're starting off on the same page. So, what I heard you say is that you have a passion and a love for coaching, but that recently, as you've been viewing the field and seeing everybody else's credentials and their platforms and how they're showing up, your takeaway from that has been, I can't compete here. I have nothing to offer. No one's going to choose me out of this selection. What am I even doing here? And then that makes you want to quit.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it convinces me that I'll never be able to develop a course that's good enough. I'll never be able to put out social media stuff that's good enough. Um, and especially with the courses right now, because as we've been talking about doing stuff, and I have this sort of want to do stuff for the people that can't afford like the massive packages. And again, that's the side of coaching I don't like, where coaching is about making money because that's what success is and that's what happiness is and all that sort of stuff. Um, and I'm just thinking like I'm not going to be able to do it. I'm not going to be able to figure this out. And we've even been like working together where you show me like the whole business plan thing, and I haven't even touched that. And so there's this thing where that holds me back. The fear of what I don't know holds me back from learning so that I can know it. And it's almost like it'd be easier for me to walk away than it would be to move through that unknown until I get that and master it. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think, yeah, you got it perfect.
Yeah. And I think what you're feeling is totally normal. And I would say 100% of entrepreneurs go through some form of it. And I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, and this is what we wrestle with, right? All these things, fear of failure, not being a good enough, what is my why, all these things. So, first of all, like, you're in good company. Congratulations. You're in the perfect place. Woohoo. So, as you and I've talked about a lot, personal growth and development is like a big knotted ball of yarn. And you pull on one string and oh, it doesn't move. And you go, okay, that's not the one we're going to pull on. And then you pull on this one and you go, ooh, that one's coming out. Let's discover what that is.
Mm.
So with this situation, I see that the conversation could start at two places. So one, it could start at sort of how you're making up these stories, because like you said, you have data, and then data is going through your filter. And what's on your filter is your childhood, your everything you were raised with, your religion, your blah, blah, blah. And then you're coming out on the other side with this story that I'm not good enough. I'm never going to be good enough. So we could go in and look at what's on that filter that's creating that story. That's one way we could take a look at it. Another string we could pull is your why. Because when you describe what you're coming up against, you're saying, no one will like it. It won't be good enough for the masses. People won't accept it, right? And so your definition for acceptance or good enough has to do with other. And so we could look at that and really look and see, like, well, what's your why, and how can we put that definition and that value back to you so that you're not externalizing that value? Which one of those feels like the string that's going to pull further out to you?
I actually love what you just did too. Like those seeing those two choices. Because I think inevitably they both connect, but it's just starting with that string. And what felt truer to me was the why.
Okay, great. Yeah. Yeah, and there's probably 10 other ways we could strings we could pull,
Yeah.
right? Those are just the two that I saw rise to the surface. So let's talk about your why. Why are you doing what you do?
I don't want to get emotional. It's so interesting. So when I was trying to figure out what was wrong with me, I went to so many different places from starting off with doubling down on religion. Um, and for, I would say, at least 10 years, operating off the belief that I felt depressed and anxious because God was not pleased with me. And that was sort of a belief system that I had taken on just from being told that in the churches that I went to. So I would do everything I could in the church, so that God would be pleased with me, but I never felt better. So there was always something wrong. I eventually gave up on that. Blame Sandy, always blaming externally. And then when I finally talked to another veteran and realized that even though I wasn't in, a war like Iraq or Afghanistan, just what I went through, I was still dealing with PTSD. So I gained a lot of hope going to the VA. And then that was shattered immediately when I was literally told by a psychiatrist once what was so bad about Bosnia, which for me that convinced me that what I thought, that I'm just weak and a coward, was true, because here's a doctor saying I should not be that weak. Um, and it took me 4 years to convince the VA to just test me. And then when they did, they were like, oh yeah, you have severe PTSD, our bad, we'll start treating you now. And the treatment was nothing. You know, I filled out a form of thoughts that I might have had that were wrong, and then why they were wrong, and how could I replace those thoughts. And then when I was done filling out that form, I would put it aside for the week, and then I would bring it to my next therapy session. We would go over it, and then I'd be given another form to do the same thing. And when I was going to school for the anthropology, and I decided I'm going to figure this out for myself, I stumbled on coaching, and I was actually resistant to it until my professor said, like, you need to look at every aspect, even the ones you don't agree with, so that you can explain in your paper why you don't agree with them, where in your opinion, where they go off. And I found that the actions that I was taking through the coaching actually was working. And that's what made me fall in love with consciousness, the mind, um, and then the things that I was learning through coaching, because it was different for me than therapy. Because the therapy was more about, I would go in, I would talk, they would listen, they would tell me things that I knew, like, well, that you're not worthless, right? I'm like, yes, but I still have a belief system that I am. And there was no discussion on that part. It was more of like, I was paying somebody to listen to me talk for 45 minutes and then tell me to have a good week. And I'm like, I can do that for free with my dog, I mean, so that's why I fell in love with the coaching, because it gave me the hope that I had been looking for 20 years. And it turned out that hope had substance to it.
Mhm. Yeah. I love your journey so much because it's so authentic and so real and so grounded in how you ended up here. So when you decided to become a coach, what did you want to offer other people?
I think this gets into one of the areas that I get confused about, because when I first decided to become a coach, I did it specifically to learn more about myself. To almost like, I bought the coaching course that I went through. It's like they have three levels. They call it Core 100, Core 200, and then like Master Coaching or something like that. So I bought the Core 100, which was like the first 100 hours of the coaching classes, and I did it specifically to 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 grow myself. I had no thought about starting a coaching business. Um, and I've talked about before with you about it, when people talk about, like, because I hear it a lot, like people say, like, I just have this desire to help people. And this is where that vulnerability is going to come in, because now I'm going to say things that I'm like, I don't know if that's right to say, but it's what I feel. So a lot of times I found that people that were saying that were almost using helping other people as a defense mechanism from working on themselves. So I'm not going to work on myself, but I have all the answers for you. And I dealt with numerous therapists that, in my opinion, were that way, because they were so easily triggered when they're asking me about my stuff, and I would answer, and then they get mad. You know, it was just kind of weird, So I don't have this desire to help people in that way, but I want to be a bright light, as bright as possible. And if, man, I don't even know how to put it. It's so weird.
I like to say it as ugly as possible. Like, "Bleh," and then even if it's not right, go, okay, well, I said that, that's not right. I change it. It's this. Because sometimes just getting words out is helpful.
I like that a lot too. Because it's like giving me permission to just be as authentic and vulnerable as I can. Like even you said, just say it as ugly as possible. So I want to be that light, not for people, but for me, because it makes me feel so amazing. And then I'm thinking, I'm so selfish. I'm a narcissist, because it's all about me. And it's not necessarily all about me. I don't want to see people suffer needlessly, just because their thoughts tell them stuff that's not true and they're so connected to those thoughts. So I want to be this like just like a light, like that type of a person that people are drawn to. But if they don't, I don't care. But if they do, that's awesome. But you know what I mean? Like it's more about that's just who I want to be as a person.
Yeah. So what gets in the way when you make a TikTok video or you do something and you're like, I'm the light, and you're feeling good because that's what you want to experience, right? And then when does that good feeling leave? When does it transform or break down into self beat up or shame?
Well, immediately, I think because I'm not saying I want to help people, like that I'm bad. Like I'm saying this is how I want to be. So that's a selfishness, it's pride. Before Lucifer became Satan, he was the angel of light, and the pride got in his way. So in fact, I think even the Bible, they call him the morning star, so light can be just as evil if it's about self, you know. So that, as I'm saying it too, that's really something that I don't think I've ever dealt with and sort of spent time to understand. Yeah, because in my mind, I'm like, I think it's bad to be like that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I was going to say is going back to that filter. It's clear that you have a rule or a
Yeah,
belief system of some type that says um, being really being a bright light is just as evil as being darkness or something about comparing that or making that wrong.
yeah. Which is like, as thinking about it, it's stupid, because that means I have to be like on this balanced thing, like in the middle where I'm not too evil, but I'm not too good because both sides are evil. But I've always felt like there's more for me. You know what I mean? But I'm so conflicted with this thing of feeling so bad about doing it for myself, because I want to explain, like, it's not that I don't want to help people. Like, if I can, that's awesome. And but to me, that's like the icing on the cake. I want to be good because I am good, because that makes me feel that's where I began to get hope, when I started practicing gratitude and practicing love, and realizing that I don't have to defend myself against somebody that's being an ass because I am that. I just want to be that.
All right, so I'm going to suggest a reframe, and it's kind of a big concept. So if it doesn't match for you, it'll at least give us kind of a jumping off place to talk about what could be happening here. So I would say that I agree with you that everything that humans do ultimately is selfish. And people don't like that word and they don't want to talk about it. But Mother Teresa did what she did because her soul called her to do it. She listened to her soul. It made her feel good to feed the hungry. So there was sort of a selfishness happening there, right?
Yeah.
I would say when human beings operate outside of that sort of innate selfishness, if you want to call it that, that's when things get ugly and weird. That's when resentment happens, burnout happens, right? When that's not in alignment. So, in a way, selfishness is kind of alignment because you're being true to you. Now, here's where it can get kind of crazy. And I suggest this to you because I know you and I know that you're sort of a cosmic thinker. I find this concept of oneness really interesting, right? That I am you and you are me, and we're made of the same things, and the stars are made of the same things, and we can't understand it. But something about my vibration is impacting your vibration. And we know this when we're together, we've experienced it. So if I'm working on me and I'm doing something for me to feel like a bright light, are you feeling that? Is it impacting you?
Yeah. Because whenever we meet, whether it's our weekly meetings or just filming the podcast, I leave with more energy than I'm coming into it with.
Right. So what if that's also true for you? What if your light and your vibration has an impact on others that you can't quantify or explain, but it's healing people?
And it's so I've seen that, and that's where some of that evidence comes in that is like, well, what is this? Like if the way I'm thinking is true, then what is this? So I play pool on Friday nights, and there's a lot of good people there, and but there's a lot of angry people there too. I mean, it's a bunch of middle-aged people playing pool on Friday nights. Like, none of us are going pro. It's not that big of a deal, but people take it seriously. I mean, they get angry. And over the last year, my team has gotten a reputation of being one of the best teams there, just one of the nicest teams there. And we uh last session we had a family join us now. So it was this guy, his son, and now his wife is on our team as well. And everybody that he had known a lot of people, so everybody that knew him was telling him or asking him like, oh, what team did you join? And he told them, and he's like, and people are telling him, you got on the best team that you possibly can get on. And then when his son joined up, he was telling me that he said, I am so happy that my son's first experience in the it's the APA, the Amateur Pool Association, something like that, is going to be with you and your team. And he talks to me about the videos I put up, and he was like, they're just so soothing. I listen to everything you put up. So, and that's when I feel connected. That's when I feel like completely aligned, like me just being who I am is impacting somebody else's life. But then there's a disconnect because when I start getting into, okay, I'm gonna work on the coaching stuff, I'm only thinking about everybody else. What are they gonna think? What are they gonna do? Or how are they gonna judge me? And I feel like I take on a character of the coach instead of just being who I am.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I don't know how to reconcile that.
So let's brainstorm that. So first, we're really clear that you love showing up as the light, which is beautiful because you are the light. And we got clear that when you show up as the light, other people feel the light, right? That's all good stuff. So now we're here where you want to turn it into a business or monetize it, and then things get crunchy, right?
Yeah.
So the first choice is, like you said, I'm just not going to monetize it. I have money coming in from my injury. I know that, right? I'm not, uh, my family's eating. I'm not going to go there. Totally valid choice, right? Next choice is, whoa, this is an opportunity for me to learn some shit.
Yeah.
right? This is an opportunity for me to discover how to be a light, not only in my own little world, in my garage, but on the stage, in the business world, in all of these other places, and bring my light to these other places. I kind of in my head right now, I'm thinking about like a video game where you have the different like levels and worlds, right?
I love that. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
also an option for you. So I think the first step is just deciding there's no right or wrong. Do you even want to play that game with the rest of the time you have here on earth? Because if your decision is like, nah, I just want to love and I'm going to love and it's cool, that's a valid decision for the rest of your life. If you decide you want to learn how to take your light to these other levels, that's a valid decision too. But that decision has to be made.
So first off, I'd like to say that I feel so comfortable right now with how you're breaking things down. And I think that's a very important thing when you are working with somebody, because you're not telling me. And like you said, I have two choices and both of them are valid, and it's not a right or wrong thing. So it's allowing me to look at both choices without a lens of shame on one of them,
Yeah.
you know, because if you were like, yeah, you could just sit around on your couch and do nothing and just be who you're, and like if you want to suck and be a loser, because then of course, I don't want to be like that.
Right.
But this allows me to listen to, what I would call my consciousness, my intuition, and feel what is more in alignment with me. Because I think that intuition speaks so softly, and
Yes.
our thoughts can drown that out.
Yeah.
Okay, our thoughts can become so loud that we can't hear and pay attention to that intuition. But intuitively, I feel that when I'm not working on stuff, I don't feel good. I feel anxious, depressed. Um, I'm not happy with myself. I'm not pleased with what I'm doing. And I'll go into distractions that are not healthy. I'll stop working out. I'll start eating crap, um, and doing it just out of boredom, you know. But when I'm working and I'm just learning, I'm not trying to do something, I'm not trying to put out a course or whatever. I'm just in this learning mode. That's when I get into like that flow state, where I'll forget to eat lunch, because I'm like nourishing myself off of, all of this stuff. Um, and my mind works different. This might be like a pause, like, or like wow. The words
Offshoot.
are so hard. Yeah, yeah, pivot. Um, and I think this is one of the things too about not jumping into that other role that's kind of stopping me, because I feel that's what feels so true to me. But I'm not doing it the way I am.
Mhm.
Like I call it playing the fool, but I don't mean it in a negative way. Um, I'm always like making jokes. Most of them fall completely flat, but I have videos on my phone where I'm being an idiot over my brother's shoulder. And I don't know if it was my mom or somebody, like, or Sandy started recording it, and people are laughing so hard. And it was either my mom or my sister-in-law, like, I'm about to pee myself, all because I was narrating my brother like getting some dessert, and just making fun, and that's who I am. And I even have a project. I want to do a book where my doctor at the VA told me if I start using cannabis, I'll either have a psychotic break or I'll do nothing with my life. So my response to that is I want to write a book about PTSD and cannabis through the lens of I had a psychotic break and now I'm receiving messages from God through Family Guy. So but I struggle with just being me,
Mhm.
where I'm still putting on that character. So yeah, I feel so aligned with that, but I have such a hard time stepping into that and putting things out.
Mhm. Yeah, I heard a couple more steps sort of in this direction. You love learning, research, right? You get in flow state when you're working on things. And I'm guessing that's true even when you're like building the course, right? Because you're doing research and writing, that's enjoyable. And then you love showing up and being funny and engaging that part of yourself. So again, where were you hitting the wall here? So when you think about you're having fun writing the course and then you think you're going to put it up for sale or you're going to like again, like we're getting closer and closer to the where it gets crunchy.
So I'm just going to answer with what comes to my mind and just trust that that's what it is instead of trying to overthink it. But um, when me and Sandy first met and she started to get to know me, she had said, you're a chameleon.
Mm,
Um, I take on the personality of whoever I'm with.
mhm,
And I feel like one of the things that I struggle with coaching is now when I work with people, um, in fact, one of the testimonies that I got was like up that's up on the website was it was in fact the first girl I worked with, she said, I always crack jokes at the perfect time, to kind of break a pattern that she was in. Um, I know like Tony Robbins uses like shocking language, and that can break the pattern. But I'm like, I don't want to say some of the things like that to people. You know what I mean? Like that would be, but I could do it in a funny way. I could be an idiot a little bit, and then that breaks that pattern. And they can kind of work through that. So I think I don't think I've ever realized this before, but I think what I'm doing is that's an old pattern that I'm falling into without realizing it, is I'm being more of the chameleon where I'm trying to develop the character instead of I am me and coaching is just something that I do, where I am making it I am a coach.
mhm. Yeah.
I've never thought of that. And that feels so on the head. Like, because that was one of the first things that I learned is that little verb am is a present tense active verb. And if I'm putting out I am a coach, then that's what I am. Then I have to be that person instead of I am me. This
Mhm.
is just so happens to be what I do.
Yeah. And I'm wondering if your definition of coach and how coaches show up in the marketplace is impacting your hesitancy to claim that.
100%. I even told Sandy 2 days ago when I was really kind of struggling with how I was feeling about this, is I feel like I've gotten into the Uber driving of like the help industry or the therapeutic industry. Um, so I'm downplaying that because I see so many people that call themselves coaches that I wouldn't trust to like advise me how to unlock my freaking door, much less how to deal with my life. It makes me angry because I feel that they're doing more damage
Mhm.
to people. Um, and I feel like that is the true, because like you said, like everything is about the set. Even when I was in my anthropology classes, we asked, like, can we ever be altruistic? And there was sort of this argument like, well, no, because even if you do something for somebody else, specifically for, you're gonna feel good, so you really can't. So there's still like you said, that selfishness, but maybe there's a difference between selfishness and self-centeredness.
Yes. Yes. And maybe there is, let me just think of the words for this. I'm wondering if your calling has something to do with revolutionizing the coaching business or the coaching definition, or disturbing, is that the word, that disturb the marketplace?
Disrupting,
Disrupt
yeah,
the
Pat
marketplace,
Cooper,
right?
yeah.
Um, I don't know if you know, I cannot think of her name right now, but she always got this label of being a troublemaker. She was loud. She was always the one sort of disrupting the marketplace. And now that is on her business cards, professional troublemaker. And she goes in and she makes trouble for people because it disrupts the marketplace, right? And so that was such a great example of her owning her weakness and turning it into her strength.
I
And
love that.
yeah, because what it sounds like to me is like, you're like, I'm clear I'm the light. I love being the light. I see my light impacting other people. And then there's this square box that says, this is what the world thinks a coach is. And you're like, I don't fit in that box. That doesn't feel good at all. Of
Mm,
course not. No wonder you feel that way, right? This poor little light that you are is like, this feels like a trap.
yeah.
Because the way that it has been set up in our culture and the way so many people do this profession is unethical. It does hurt people.
Yeah, I heard a friend of mine sent me a podcast of a guy. He was a coach, and he was in very depressed state, and he was just talking about it. And he said it, one of the things that pisses him off so much is that he was listening to another podcast with a guy who was, he was suicidal, and then he you know was able to escape that. And the whoever was hosting the podcast asked him, like, well, what do you do when you get back in that state? And his answer was like, I don't anymore. And they were like, well, how don't you? And he said, I have rituals that I do. And he said, well, what's one of those rituals? And he said, at night I have a cup of tea. And the guy was like, you're telling me if I have a cup of tea at night, I'm not going to feel like I just don't want to be alive right now? He's like, that's bullshit. um and like you said, like, to me, that's that little box of what I'm trying to take this universal thing, because I don't want to be a light because I want to be a light because I believe that's what we all are, not because I'm called and special, but because that's what I am. I am choosing to be good. And then I see this stuff about, like, especially with guys, stop being the nice guy and take back your masculinity. And I'm like, what does one have to do with the other? Why can't you be a guy and be nice? Like, why do you have to put on this persona of I'm the tough guy and then tell everybody? Like, to me, you're a chihuahua. You're a little dog that shakes constantly and barks, that has to let everybody know I'm a man. And I'm, I don't know, it's like, just disgusts me.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to take this cosmic thing that I am, that we all are, and shove it into this little box. But when you said that, to when I graduated, my professor, Dr. Perry, asked me, he's like, what are you going to do now? and I said, I'm going to go pick a fight and it was talking about the VA. And that has brought me into this, because I started off as like the veteran coach, and now I'm the stoner spirited life coach. And that's like when you were talking about that lady, professional troublemaker, that's what I am. Like, I don't, a friend of mine was helping me with some social media stuff. And like when I first started, and it was like American flags, and I'm like, that doesn't resonate with me, you know? The stoner spirited part, like that's what I resonate with so much, because I'm just like, everything is good. It's all good. Whatever I have is enough. You know, everything that I need, I already have. And if you want to spit on me or if you want to hug me and thank me, it's all good. Do just do you. And I want to be a constant in people's lives, like not a variable, not like, oh, you're not adding to me. So therefore I'm push like I don't care. I don't want to need anybody to have to add to me or take away from me. I want to be above all that. But that doesn't fit into coaching as it is the mainstream type coaching that's today.
Yeah. So, one of the things that you said early on in this session that I really loved was when you talked about how originally you had a kind of a bad, like, aversion to coaching, ugh, right? But
Yeah,
then
yeah.
I'm suffering so much, I might as well try this shit, right?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
And tried it and you're like, "Oh my gosh, this works." And you tried it again and you're like, "This actually feels good." And you started feeling good and better and better. And you did that through a process of what I would call like investigation or the scientific process. You said, "I'm going to think these thoughts for this long and practice." I know I've heard your road rage, you're going to practice peace and things, right? So you are good at that. You've used that technique before. What would it look like to apply that same technique to where you are now? Because you have an aversion to this, like, coaching as a business. Okay, perfect. You're at the same place you were, right? A different level, a different setting. How can you investigate and find out if that's true?
I've never not liked you before until you just asked me that question.
You're all, this session's over.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you for listening to the last episode of Chasing
Right.
Thoughts. That I really don't like that question, but I don't like it because it is gonna require. Wow, I've built a safe way to put myself out, because all I talk about is what I've learned, and I love talking about what I've learned. And to me, like that's the heart of my social media, just sharing all of this amazing. I don't need to say this is what I come up with. And like I love talking about Sadhguru, Bessel Vander, like all these guys that I've learned so much from, even people that I don't like. So I went through Tony Robbins's course, and I love so much of what I've learned, but there's things I don't like about some stuff. Um, and I've learned to kind of have that sort of mental, like we talked about before, plumbing, where I can take out the fiber and let the rest of the turd float on down the stream. But that would require me to open myself up to people commenting on my stuff that I'm an idiot, I'm a piece of shit, I don't know what I'm talking about, I'm stupid, I'm not an expert. And I think what it comes down to me, deep down, that's what I judge myself as. And then if some random stranger that I don't even know exists right now, and then after they leave the comment, I'll have no idea if they exist again, will confirm to me that that's exactly what I am.
Yes. So, how do you challenge that? How did you challenge that before when you used these tools?
I have to do it. I have to do it and accept the discomfort, accept the thoughts that will come, the anxiety that will come with doing it. I'll have to accept the comments that come in
Mhm.
and just do it until like the anger part, like I practice that road rage, forcing myself into positions where I was pissed off driving in the slow lane on the highway behind some, blue-haired old lady. I'll have to do that until I lose the fear, until I see that the fear is not it's not a real fear. It's not a real danger that I have to protect myself from.
Yeah. And I love sort of imagining you posting videos and putting yourself out there more and more, and imagining yourself driving behind the wheel, practicing patience, right? And because it's exactly the same thing in a different realm. You're practicing groundedness, you're practicing self-trust, you're practicing, right, all these things that are required for you to do the next level. And you know, it'd be so nice if, as humans, we had like a magic wand, right? We're like, ding, you are now confident enough to go to the next stage. But it's not the way it works. We have to practice it.
And one of the cool things I have learned though is like the power of visualization.
Yes.
And like Joe Dispenza talks, and it's cool too, because he cites studies, because he's a guy that I'm like, all right, he's a chiropractor. And they call him Dr. Joe Dispenza, and like even on Family Guy, there was an episode where Dr. Hartman, the doctor on the show, he was like, he got drunk and actually accidentally went to a weekend seminar and came away as a doctor of chiropractor. Um, which I told that to my chiropractor, and he did not find it as funny as I did, but it was pretty good. But he cites his sources. So he talks about studies that are done, and he had a great study that he showed in visualization. And there was a few different ones done, but the one I remember most clearly is they had three groups of people. Um, People that sat down at a piano and practiced for an hour a day on a scale. The second group of people sat down in a chair, visualized themselves playing that scale without ever touching a piano. Then they had the third group of people that did nothing. And they took brain scans prior to, they did this for like 5 weeks, and then they did brain scans at the end. So the people that did nothing had no changes in their brain. The people that sat down and practiced, they saw changes in like those areas of the brain that deal with that. But the most interesting thing is the people that visualized themselves doing it, they saw some of the same changes as the people that actually played the piano. So visualization combined with a strong emotional connection to it is incredibly powerful and actually can help me boost that confidence, not to the point where it's not going to bother me,
Yeah.
but boost that confidence where maybe it won't be as difficult like when I do it.
Yes. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, there's tons of research and data about how imagining something, a strong imagination, all the same chemicals are released in the body, the brain grows in all the same ways as it does it's actually doing that thing. And I love sports, so I listen to a lot of like sports psychology podcasts, and that's the whole thing, right? When somebody hits that home run, they've visualized themselves hitting that 1,000 times.
Yeah.
That's why it works. One thing that I like to do, and this is just a suggestion if it appeals to you, I like to record my own guided meditations
Hmm.
for me. So I'll go
Really?
like,
Never thought of that.
because I know where I want to go and what I want to imagine, right? So you could write and record your own thing that says like, and now you're doing this, Keith, and imagine this happening, and whatever you want to visualize, and have a custom visualization for yourself.
I like that. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I think I'm definitely gonna do that. Um,
I would like to suggest something else to you, but it's a little, I don't know, word to use, invasive, pushy, and it might not be correct. So, do I have your permission to say it? And if it's not real, you can say, nah, that doesn't fit.
Please, yes.
Okay, I know you love to learn, and you have said that in this session. It's clearly a passion of yours. So, when you're learning from a teacher or a book or something, it's kind of one-sided because you're a human, but this is sort of closed. You're learning this thing. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm curious if the next stage of your learning is from your clients. And if you could get as excited about learning from your clients as you do from books and teachers, would that change the way that you think about coaching? Because with a client, it's open and open. You have these two vulnerable things. There's no set parameters, and the learning happens in this weird space where both people have to be open. So it's a different kind of learning.
Mm.
But working with you, I know that you're more than capable of it. But what if getting clients is partially about them experiencing your light, and it's partially about them teaching you?
Yeah, that's, I think that's big because that, I mean, that would drive me towards getting clients, which I've been so focused on the learning aspect and specific learning too, learning about consciousness and the mind and all that, because from January, like I have written down on my to-do list, like learn how to post properly on Instagram, and every month I'm just writing down the same thing to do, learn how, so it's specific learning, but I've never thought about it. So that would drive me to go after clients.
Yeah, I think about how much we've learned from our guests on the podcast.
Yeah.
And you didn't have to know anything or be any certain way, right? You just showed up and you learned and they learned. I don't know if I've told you this before, but one of my favorite experiences in a session with a client is when they're talking about their struggle. And my thought, my brain, which is, we all know thoughts can't be trusted, they just come and go. My brain says something like, I don't know what the F you're going to do. Like, that's messed up, man. Right? Like, I have a judgment, but I just let it float by and I keep asking questions and I keep asking questions, and they come up with a brilliant answer and an amazing plan. And after I get off the session, I'm so grateful because it has been this visceral experience for me to know once again that I can't trust my brain, that there's
Yeah.
more out there. And that client helped me open up and stay present in the moment where wisdom arises. And so I'm so grateful for my clients because they keep me in that place where I don't get trapped in my thoughts, because my thoughts don't tell me the truth like 95% of the time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
so with your love for learning, there might be a catalyst in that, right? For you to seek clients if you sort of flipped it around.
Yeah. And the one thing it comes to my mind. So one of my clients that I'm working with, he's a Marine, and so that tells you his mindset. Not a smart guy. No, I'm joking. I think they call like Marines like crayon eaters or something because they have that like reputation and stuff. But um he's a gym rat, and he has a mentality when it comes to pushing himself physically. That, have you ever heard of I'm not gonna remember his first name right now, but the last name is Goggins.
Mm-mm.
He's like an ex-Navy SEAL, and I heard his wife speaking like what it's like to live with him, because they'll come home from like a dinner party and he'll be like, I'm going on a 100-mile road ruck march, and she follows him in the car, and he just throws a ruck on his back and then basically runs 100 miles, just in a night. Um, he's run on broken feet, broken ankle, like nothing's, and so this guy has that mentality, and he said to me, when the pain starts, that's when I start working. And for me, physically, when the pain starts, like I can stub my toe and I'm taking a month and a half off of any type of like physical work, but emotionally, I have taken that on as like sort of this mantra that I know when I get in these states. And that's what made me ask you, do you want to do this? I knew I was hurting, I was in some pain. And so I was like, all right, this is what he would say. When the pain starts, that's when I start working. So it's time to do some work. Um, and if I can do that with everybody, like, I mean, that just blows my mind, because I think that's one of the things that I want to explore in life is how cosmic I can get,
Mm,
like you hear people like we talk about manifesting, people seeing interdimensional beings and stuff. Like, I'm like, I don't know if that's true, but if it is, I want to experience that, you
yes.
know? So yeah, that's huge.
So I have one more question for you, and then we'll consider it sort of like wrap up session, and then we can kind of debrief. That part of you that you're talking about, that's the part of you that when you get all these like, downward spiral thoughts, that's who you can go to for a pep talk, right? So what
Oh,
is that part of you? What do you call that? Is that your cosmic being? Is it your inner marine? Is it your higher self? Like, how do you develop more of a relationship with that part of yourself? Even so you could be like, hey, cosmic being, you tell these thoughts to go to hell right now. Right?
yeah. So, and again, like you said, learning like from our guests. So this sin talking about having the seats for her different things. So I just want to make it clear too that my inner Marine, since I was in the Army, that's the guy that, like opens the cabinet and forgets and bends down to pick up something and then knocks himself out. Like when he stands up, that's my inner Marine. That's what he does. So yeah. Yeah, I think I'll call that part like the cosmic Keith,
Cosmic Keith, I love it.
yeah, yeah. Because and that's where I feel I've never talked about that before. Like, are there like I want to believe that there are, but then that the part that loves the science above me is like, but is there evidence? And I'm like, well, there's stories, but there's not like the tangible evidence, but I want to experience that. I want to experience being able to have an out of body experience, like that type of stuff. But I've always thought you're going to sound like you're just a complete tool, if you talk about that, like when I look at on social media and like people talking about star seeds and like I'm channeling a message from the 7 creators of Acturian. I'm like, is that a thing? So like I don't want to look stupid, but I also admire these people that do things that I judge as stupid and they don't give a shit. Like my opinion is nothing to them, you know.
Yeah,
I've
when I
never
was
thought of
studying
that before.
Hinduism, they talked about how in Hinduism they have two experiences of God, a God with qualities and a God without qualities. And you can
Hmm.
believe in either one. So a God with qualities is very much like the Christian God, right? He looks like this, he sounds like this is what he thinks. And a God without qualities is everything. And that's kind
That's
of what I hear you saying, right? Like Cosmic Keith doesn't want to say, I'm channeling the seventh dimension and the seventh dimension has blonde hair and thinks this. You're more attracted to a God without qualities, an experience, the vastness.
yeah. Yeah, to kind of flex my nerd muscles, right? I think what was it? So it was I think it was Deep Space Nine, in Star Trek. There was this character that he was like this liquid metal and he could take on any form. And his home planet was like this ocean of like this steely liquid. And when he would have to go back into that ocean to be able to like kind of um keep who he is. And while he was in that, he was a part of everyone, but he was still himself. And that's I've sort of reframed the idea of heaven to that, that I believe like there's this universal consciousness that's just this ocean of am, ocean of being. And I'm a part of that, but I'm also an individual at the same time. There's that paradox. And I want to connect more with the everything and less with the me.
Mm, that's beautiful. And you know what else I thought of when you were saying that is, in a way, I heard you saying, I am the light that is pouring out my experience or my wisdom or what I know on a TikTok video. And I am also the asshole that's judging and commenting on the TikTok video.
Yes, that's what because even when I was saying that, I'm like, I can't say like again, I'm a coach, like, and I don't want to judge people, but here I am judging people that are talking in a light language or something, and I'm like, come on, So yes, that's one of the things that mushrooms have taught me is that life is a constant paradox.
Yes.
So I am that person, yeah, I am that light, and then I am also that asshole. Yes.
Yeah. Yep. And I would argue that that is what makes you a powerful coach for other people.
Hmm.
Because when they come to you and they're in a space of their life where they're being an asshole, you're like, yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Right? You're not like, well, I'm the light and you're the asshole. And let's see how we can do this.
Yes.
That wouldn't work at all, right? Like that
Right.
being the asshole and the light at the same time is the gift.
See, this is where, like, again, I would be so careful, but like, this is what I'm thinking. If light came from a singularity and an asshole is like a singularity, my light comes from me being an asshole.
And I mean, it gets funny and cosmic, right? But in a way, I'll use I language for me. I don't want to let go or deny all those other parts of me because they actually make me more whole, right? And same with you.
Yeah,
All your insecurities, they can go along for the ride and maybe they're actually helping. They just need to take a back seat.
almost. Yeah. Yeah. Like they keep me on track, but they're not my guide. And I think right now I'm using my insecurities as like my GPS.
Yes. And that's
And
Cosmic Keith's job.
yes. Yes.
Yeah. Cosmic Keith is the one with the compass. He's the one saying, "Come on, guys, this is north. We're going due north. Ah, you're getting off track."
Wow. Oh, this is going to be so hard because I don't think I've ever let him drive.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
still driving from my feelings and my insecurities instead of just letting go. And because, like, in that ocean of being, that's what you have to do. You just have to let go. And that's what I'm not doing. I'm not letting go.
Yeah. And I think that being a wizard or an alchemist or whatever you want to call it, right, in this world is when you are able to fully come into those like paradoxes that you're talking about, or those, disparate things where you can be both things at the same time and you can be fully. present with all of it. That's oneness, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I just saw a video by Brene Brown, who she is my best friend. She just doesn't know
It's
it.
amazing.
Uh, she was talking about the opposite of belonging.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, well, if you belong to something, the opposite is not belonging, being alone, being an outcast, whatever it is. And through her research, she found that the opposite of belonging is fitting in. Because when you fit in, you look at a group and say, I want to belong to that. Who do I have to become to be part of that? So you're not entering that group as you. You're entering that group as this pretend character that you take on so that you fit in.
Yes.
And I think that's sort of the trap I'm getting into with coaching.
Yes. I think that was spot on for you, is that you see all these coaches here doing it this way. And so you're like, oh, I have to change to fit into this, but you don't.
Okay, so can I ask you a question?
Mhm.
Um, and I also like to plug, I have a friend of mine that has a social media business she's just starting. I like to plug that if I could. Because the question is, what kind of, because when I think about this, I'm like, yes, that's what I want to do. And then an hour from now, or even 5 minutes from now, I'll go and make a post and I'll have my phone up and I'll be like just everything's gone, you know, and I get it. It's that survival that takes over. And so that's going to happen.
Mhm.
So there's this new social media business called Two Sisters. Do you know what it is? What's the name of it?
All right, everybody who's listening, I have done marketing for a long time, and I've always had a dream of running a business with my sister. And so we've officially opened a marketing business, but it's particularly geared towards solopreneurs and small businesses, because we're not the kind of marketing firm where we're like, oh, we have beers on tap and a view of the city, and we use these expensive programs that you don't understand. We're more like, hey, we get it. We've been small business owners. We'll use Canva. We'll use, like Square website builder. We'll do the work for you so you can take it over whenever you want. So we can be collaborators in this. And so it's really, I think a hole I've seen in the marketing industry is that you either have these big guys or you have nothing and you've got to do it yourself. So we're trying to kind of hit that middle market niche. But that's why Keith's making fun of me, because I've been posting all these new things for my sister and I.
Yeah, and I've been loving like all the pictures that you're putting up of you and your sister like growing up and stuff. Like I was like, this is so cool. Um, but yeah, so sorry for pushing that, but I wanted to like plug that for you too. But could you give me an example of a post that I can put up? Because that, like I was saying, that's one of the issues like I'll have is like everything will make sense for me in the moment, and then when I go to take action on it, everything just shuts off.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, so can you like think just as a quick example of something that I can or a way that I can put something up?
So I think from talking to you that the expert, that role, right, is either a role that you just don't identify with, and some people don't, or it's a role that you haven't built a relationship with yet,
Mm,
right? A part of you, one of those, that chair's empty in your round table in your brain. I don't know which one, but I've heard you say multiple times that showing up and saying, I'm the expert, come to me, doesn't feel right. Great, honor that, right? Whatever you want to do in the background, if you want to try to build a relationship, whatever, that's your own personal growth, right? But right now you recognize this isn't comfortable, it's going to come off inauthentic. So what is comfortable? We language, learning from clients, right? What is the message that you can hone that feels really authentic to you, that is also a call to action? So in your case, I would say something like, almost even making fun or sharing your own journey, right? Are you put off by life coaches? Me too. Guess what? Right?
yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
making that perceived weakness your strength, right? Or you could even be more silly with it, like you see people do, where they have like they're playing two people, and you're like, I'm the expert coach, you should hire me. What are you talking about? This is that, right? And do
Yeah,
some
yeah.
back and forth. But if you're out there to be a market disruptor, if you don't like what you see in the marketplace, call it out. Like that seems authentic to you.
It feels authentic me because even when I talk about it, I don't feel like I call it out like these people are bad.
Right.
So I don't feel like I'm necessarily judging them, but I still think it's wrong. Um, and
You
the
could,
only thing stopping me is what other people's reactions are going to be, which tells me right off the bat that it's a bullshit excuse not to do it.
yeah. You reminded me at the end of sort of that tactic that we've talked about before, where it's like, okay, go out and get 100 no's, go out and get 100 mean comments.
Yes.
Like that's your goal. That's driving in the car, practicing patience and practicing peace. I'm going to go out and get 100 negative comments. That means you're walking the line, you're living right outside your comfort zone, right? But what I thought of is you could even ask for help from TikTok. Hey, TikTok, here's the deal. I'm a life coach and I friggin' love my work and I help people. But the life coach industry, as I know it, bleh, I don't like it at all. What do you think? What's your experience? How could I market myself? Right? Like you could even engage your audience is another tactic that you could use.
Mm. Yeah,
Ask
I've
for
never
opinions.
thought about doing stuff like that. Yeah, like asking the questions and
Or even,
okay.
more simple, life coach. What do you think when you hear that word? And see what people say. Market research.
Yeah, I even just thought too, like just put up a post and be like, listen, like you were saying, like I'm so scared of negative comments, so negative comments only on this post, like nothing positive.
Right, give it to me.
Yeah, yeah, let's get this out of the way. Okay.
And then the work is when you get negative comments, like you said before, the ones that hurt really bad are showing you where you're have an unhealed trigger. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. Right. I must really believe that I'm a piece of shit. I must really believe I'm a fraud. Right. It's showing you where you have work to do on yourself. And then you accept it. You go, okay, note to self, I'm putting that down on my list to talk about with my coach or my therapist or in my mushroom walks, right? Now I'm going to deal with this in real time. How can I be positive, make fun of myself, right? And deal with this in the world. I don't know if you saw the one I did the other day, but there's this guy that was commenting on my videos and he kept saying that my voice sounded like a frog. I forgot what he called it. He also had another
Yes.
for it, right? I'm like, okay, I'll just go on and pretend to do a frog voice then. And I'll do a video in a funny frog voice because what else am I going to do? That's who I am.
Yeah. And because I remember seeing that and I got pissed. I was about to comment and I'm like, nope, 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 not because and the way you handled it was so perfect. And after seeing your response to it, I always go back to Family Guy. There was an episode of Family Guy where Peter, he got sick and his voice changed, like that sick voice that we get. He started doing like radio, and Lois was like, your voice is so sexy. She could not get enough of it, and all this stuff. So it reminded me like you had turned it from somebody kind of being negative towards you into something that was very funny in my head, the way that you handled it, which I thought was beautiful.
But that wasn't my first response. My first response was a video that went something like, why do we have the need to be comment and pull people down? This world is blah, blah, blah. And you're an example of the problem in this world.
Are you seriously?
And then I thought, that doesn't feel good, right? I'm not bringing more light to the world with that response.
Yeah.
So I sat back with it for a little while, right?
Yeah. And
I think
I,
that
I, oh, go ahead.
Right. Like when you talk about parts, you're like, okay, that's inner 2-year-old Mindy that responded the first time, who's like hands on the hips, stomping her feet. And then higher self Mindy came in and said, okay, we don't need to do this. Right. So when you have those negative comments, you go, Cosmic Keith, come on, dude. I need you. I need you front and center.
So no, I'm not even going to say that. I was going to say, I almost wonder if this is what's happening, but I know this is what's happening. And I'm going to allow myself to be able to say that. Um, when I put on the character, I can't think of things to post beyond what I do because I'm protecting myself, which is survival, which then shuts off the creative process in my brain.
Yes. Brilliant. Brilliant. So good. So good. That's a nugget. When you're pretending, yeah, everything gets shut off. Beautiful.
Mm.
And
I think I've
how,
gotten, oh, go ahead.
just how lucky are you that that's true for you and that you can recognize it? How
Yeah.
beautiful that you feel bereft of ideas when you're playing a role, because it pushes you right back into the line of authenticity.
Yeah. It's, you just took it a step farther for me too. Using that again as a guide, say, you know what? I can't think right now. I'm playing a role.
Mhm.
Take some breaths, relax, come at it, in a couple of minutes where I'm not in that role. I'm just in me. I'm just being me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ah, that's pretty cool.
That's such a beautiful discussion today. I mean, this is what I think is so funny about coaching. I mean, we said I was coaching you, but I got just as much out of this session as you did, right? It's learning together. And that's why I
Yeah.
love this job. And I just love it so much because I feel like I get to connect and learn with people, and it's a blessing.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I think I've gotten more out of this, even doing this as, for an issue I'm having, but as an example of what coaching should look like. I think I've gotten more out of this than I have out of 99% of any therapy session. So if anybody's looking for a coach out there, dial up Mindy quick.
I think that we should flip it around, in the next couple of weeks when we have an empty session, because I'll show up as a very good client for you. I'm a good client. I'm a vulnerable client. And I trust you, Keith.
It's so
I
funny because
trust
like
you as a coach.
our those patterns that our mind creates are so strong because I go immediately right back into that pattern, but I'm not going to sound just like
Nope, you're
and
not.
like, oh my, I have to, and it's like, that's the freaking character, you asshole.
Yeah. And also, there's people out there listening right now that are thinking, "Ugh, that doesn't work for me."
Yeah.
And that's okay. And when you coach me, there's going to be people who love you and people who it doesn't work for. Like, you can't get 100%. That's not how, the world is
Right.
too nuanced for that. People are too nuanced.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why it's important that there's both of us, that there's all of us.
Yes. Yeah. This has been, for somebody listening and thinking about coaching, this has been, and I truly mean this, and I hope people understand that, one of the most comfortable investigative sessions I have ever had. I never felt pushed, shamed, judged. I felt pure acceptance and understanding and just investigation.
Hmm. Yeah, thank
Um,
you so much for saying that. And yeah, that's what I believe coaching is. I feel like Dora sometimes, like, get
yeah.
the get the map. Let's go on an adventure.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really what it feels like. And it really is. an amazing thing. Like the calm that I feel is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so beautiful what we can do for each other.
Yeah,
Humans,
just
right? So
yeah,
cool.
kindness, listening,
Accepting.
acceptance. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And we are very powerful.
Oh, beyond what we can imagine.
Mhm.
And that's for my own self, that is, I think, the investigation that I want to be on for the rest of my life.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah.
how powerful am I?
Yes. Me too, man. Me too. Yeah. Yeah. So I want to share one more thing, and then I know we have to close up because I think it'll be funny. So we talked about my new business with my sister. We did this session with Keith. So I've owned and operated a lot of businesses. I'm in the personal development field since 2010. You know that. So I'm pretty used to like looking at bad emotions and sitting with bad emotions. My sister has a different path, just as beautiful, but this is the first time that she's opened a business like this and put herself out like this. So we set up the Instagram page, Facebook page, whatever, this last week, and she calls me yesterday afternoon and she goes, "Can we talk about something? Can I ask you a question?" I go, "Sure." She's like, "My mind is freaking out right now and telling me really weird shit. Like everybody's going to judge us and they're going to be like, 'Oh, those freaking girls, like they're going to fail soon.'" Like, and I'm like, "Congratulations. Like this is the journey.
Yes.
Like I'm so glad you're on this journey with me because this is the work." Right? And how lucky. I feel so blessed right now. I have you, Keith, who's doing this work in the podcast as we grow. I have my sister who's doing this work. And to me, this is what business partnership is. This is what collaboration looks like. Is sure, it's the nuts and bolts. How do you get on Instagram Live? But more than that, it's being able to say to your partner or your collaborator, "I think I'm a piece of shit." Is that true
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
now? And have them be like, "No, it's not true. Let's keep going."
Yeah. Yeah. This is the first time since I left the military that I feel like I am a part of a group again. Um, I have, a few people here. Like I don't have many friends at all. Like, I mean, you can probably count them on one hand. I have a couple people here, and then you're a part of that now. And when I think I'm alone, I just start to think like, no, even though you're on the other side of the country, I'm like, Mindy is right there, and we're connected, whether we're talking or not. We're constantly, connected.
Yeah. And I think for anybody listening, like that's why I want you to hit the subscribe button, like follow us, because you and I have a vision of creating a community of followers where it's not just us. We have forums and groups and classes with everybody with this same thrive and help thrive mentality, cosmic mentality. That's what you and I both have a vision of building. And so if someone's listening and they're thinking, "I don't have any friends either," because I don't either. And I think that that's very common in today's world is we're very isolated.
Yep.
And so, yeah, join us. You can be part of the club. Let's do this, right? You can call us up and say, "I feel like a piece of shit." And we'll tell you, "No, you're not." Keep
Yeah.
going.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's one of the things that we forgot, because we look at life as the way we live it today, but one of the greatest inventions that has ever come around is the hearth, the cooking spot. When they find that in the archaeological record, and they start to see more and more, it's as bands begin to grow larger and larger. So cooperation is what put us from prey to the apex species on the planet,
Yes.
but we've lost that. I mean, as great as technology is, technology isolates, but we can harness technology to create a community that people might not have just around their home.
Yeah. And I think, we had this huge rise in technology super fast, right? The internet, man, when I look at my lifetime, it's crazy how much has
Oh,
happened. So, of course, it went sideways for a little bit, right? People got weird with it. It got isolating. People got mean. Now we're going to bring in some consciousness.
Yeah.
And I think if we all do that together, the next big growth of technology can look different, right? It can be combined with wisdom a little bit. But, anytime you bring something new, it gets weird for a while, right? You got to juggle it, figure it out. Technology, the internet is really not that old.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember like when we first got AOL,
Oh,
when I was
yeah.
I was in Italy, like when I think I was 19. And you have to wait for everything to upload and it slowly moves down the screen. Yup. And now you can talk to AI and you think it's a person, like it's crazy.
Yeah, it is absolutely crazy. Yeah. This has been a really fun session, and I want you to prepare to coach me in the future in the next couple of weeks. We'll do it.
That'll be
Next
good.
week, next week I think we have a guest, and it's gonna be really fun because I'm gonna be at this historic Embassy Suites in downtown Portland. So we're recording from a new location.
Oh, nice, nice.
I'm gonna go see a Nuggets Trailblazers game, like an NBA game. And
Very
I'm
cool.
really excited about it. It's the first time I've ever seen basketball at a professional level live. And so it's going to be a lot of fun.
Nice. That's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I love basketball. It's so fast. And I love all the like, squick, 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 like this.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just really such a dynamic sport. So I'm pretty.
Yup. Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Questions, comments, ideas, suggestions, drop them below or shoot us an email. We'd love to connect with you.
Definitely.
Thank you for listening to the Chasing Thoughts podcast. Please support us by liking, subscribing, or leaving a review or comment. We would really appreciate it. If you'd like to be a guest, we would love to explore life and what it means to be human with you. Please email us at chasingthoughtspodcast@gmail.com.